everyone, I'm Isabel Flores with 7 News, and I'm here at the Old Fort Niagara for this Haunted WNY episode, and I'm joined with a very special guest today.
Robert Emerson, I'm Executive Director of Old Fort Niagara.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Now, can you tell us a little bit about the history of the fort?
Well, the fort was founded in 1726, built by the French. They wanted to control the Niagara Portage, which was a trail that bypassed the falls and was really the key to reaching the upper Great Lakes and all the trade that was going on there. So the French were the first Europeans to explore this area, and they knew they needed to fortify the site to keep the British out. And so the fort was constructed. The French held the fort till 1759 when the British came and took it away after a 19-day siege. British held it till 1796, and then it was turned over to the United States. U.S. lost it again during the War of 1812, but got it back at the end of the war through the treaty. So the fort's changed hands about 5 times in its history. But the Old Fort began to deteriorate in the 1920s, and that's when the Old Fort Niagara Association was formed to preserve it, and they restored the fort. So they took it back to the way it looked as best they could.
I mean, I think they did a beautiful job. This looks so pretty. And, you know, I wanted to ask too, because, you know, with this beauty comes a few, more paranormal kind of stories that go along with this. Can you tell me a little bit about the legends here?
Well, the most famous story about Old Fort Niagara is the headless ghost that comes right out of this well that we're sitting on. And this story began, it was first written down in 1839 by a gentleman who wrote tourist guidebooks. The story was that there were 2 French officers, and there was a party going on upstairs, and they began to fight over a woman. And they drew their swords, and they started fighting down the stairs, and one of them tripped and fell, and the other one lunged forward and stabbed him with his sword, which was considered very ungentlemanly. So all of a sudden, the assailant has to figure out how to dispose of his body. So he chops off the head, takes the head outside, throws it in the lake, and he comes back to dispose of the rest of the body, going to hack it up, when he hears footsteps. So, oh no, what am I going to do? How am I going to get rid of this? So he throws the rest of the body down the well. So the story is that the original story was that on nights of the full moon, this headless ghost would appear sitting right here on the edge of the well, just, sitting there in sorrow over his severed head. And as the years went by, this story gains a lot of embellishment. So the next version of it was that he's sitting here on the well groaning. So now he's actually, I don't know how you groan when you don't have a head, but you're groaning. And the next version of the story is that the headless ghost actually wanders the halls of the French castle looking for his head. And it really, the story was embellished and embellished and embellished all the way up through the 1950s, 1960s, when it became a very popular tale of the tour guides here. And there's other stories too about this space that are probably stories that are even more modern and unexplained. We had a technician in here one time inspecting our fire alarm system, and there was this yellow orb following him around right down the hallway to your right. This orb is following him around. His first thought was, oh, I left the flashlight in my belt on. And he looks down, the flashlight's off, and the orb goes down the hall and makes a right turn and disappears. A left turn and disappears. So he comes over to the office, and he's absolutely terrified. And one of the employees came over and saw the same thing. And it was just an orb floating around, and it disappeared. Several years ago, a local newspaper reporter wanted to spend Halloween night in here.
Oh, wow.
And I said, sure. I knew his boss. His boss was on our board of directors, so I thought, this guy is trustworthy. So I said, okay. I met him here around 10 o'clock, and we searched. I showed him all around the building. We had the lights all on, and he bedded down just, in that room immediately to our right. And I left him about 11 o'clock. And I said, here's my home phone number. I can be here in 5 minutes if you have any problems. So I went home, and at 11:30 my phone rang. And, Bob, is that you? Yeah, what's the matter? He said, I heard a door slam upstairs, and I heard footsteps coming down the stairs toward me. And I said, where are you now? I'm in my car in the parking lot. So I'll be right there. So I came down, and we came in, and we turned on all the lights, and we searched the whole building, and there was no one here. One of my favorite stories is we frequently have reenactments here, and we have reenactors who come in from different parts of the country, and they stay overnight. And one time a fellow was sleeping in another building in the middle of the night. He's by himself in this building, and in the middle of the night he felt someone shaking his ankle, violently shaking his ankle. And he startled awake, and he groped, and he had brought a flashlight. We were not entirely 18th century here. He brought his flashlight, and he shone it around the room, and there was no one there. And that's happened to 2 different people in that building that don't know each other. So that's kind of strange. We've had numerous paranormal TV shows come here. Ghost Hunters was here. I think there was a show called Ghost Lab that was here, and they all found unusual things that could be explained. And you let your mind wander, and it's easy to kind of think yourself into an experience, but I've just tried to not go there.
Yeah. No, it's always good to keep a level head too, especially if you work here and you're here a lot of the time.
I mean, when you walk down that hall, you have to turn the lights out in one place and then walk down the long dark hall. And when you walk down that hall, even though you've never experienced anything here personally, you're thinking of all the stories that other people have told you, and other people whom I respect. They've seen things or experienced things that are just unexplained. So you have to think of those things when you make that long walk down that hallway.
Yeah, no, and again, respect to you for that, because I'm not sure if I could do that.